Hey everyone, and welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today we're taking a look at GlucoTrack, ticker symbol GCTK. Now this medical device company has been making some interesting moves lately. Not all of them good.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride for investors, hasn't it? You've got this steep drop in their stock price, but then there's also this shakeup in their leadership team. It really makes you wonder what direction they're heading in.
Right, so GCTK closed at 0.057 cents a share. That was on February 4th, 2025. And that's a 10.94% drop from the day before. And get this, it's the third day in a row that they've closed lower.
Oof, yeah, that 3-day losing streak, that's definitely a sign that something's up. It makes you wonder how they got to this point.
Well, let's rewind back to June of 2024. Remember, on June 7th, GCTK was actually doing pretty well. They closed at $2.88 a share with a 16.80% gain. So what happened between then and now?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? To figure that out, we really need to look at a couple things. We need to look at what GCTK has been doing, but we also need to look at the overall market sentiment.
And speaking of what GCTK has been doing, they just announced a pretty big move, a 1-for-20 reverse stock split. It went into effect on February 4th, 2025.
Ah, yes, the reverse stock split. It's a move that companies often make when their stock price gets really low, like we're seeing with GCTK right now.
So can you explain for our listeners what exactly a reverse stock split is?
Sure. So basically, in a reverse stock split, a company reduces the number of outstanding shares. They combine a certain number of existing shares into a single new share. So in GCTK's case, for every 20 shares that an investor owned, they now own just one share.
And what's the point of doing that?
Well, the main goal is to increase the price of each individual share, even though the total value of the company stays the same.
So it's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It might make the stock look more appealing at first glance, but it doesn't actually solve any of the company's underlying problems.
Right. So how does this reverse stock split play into the recent drop in GCTK's stock price?
Well, the split itself can actually cause some volatility in the short term. Investors might sell off their shares because they're uncertain about the company's future.
That makes sense. So let's dive into some market indicators, starting with the simple moving averages, or SMAs.
Okay, so SMAs are basically just a way to smooth out price data over a certain period of time so you can see the overall trend more clearly. And right now, GCTK is trading well below both its 50-day SMA and its 200-day SMA, which is generally considered a bearish signal.
Bearish meaning?
Meaning that the market sentiment is negative
Mm.
and that the stock price is likely to continue to decline.
Got it. And then there's the RSI, or Relative Strength Index.
Right, the RSI measures the magnitude of recent price changes to evaluate overbought or oversold conditions.
And GCTK's RSI is currently sitting at 32.67.
So that's getting close to what's considered oversold territory, which is typically below 30. Some investors might see that as a sign that the stock is due for a rebound.
But is it really that simple?
Not necessarily. There are a lot of other factors to consider, like the company's financial health, for example.
Speaking of which, GCTK hasn't released their financials in a while. I'm a little concerned about that.
Yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. It makes it harder to assess the company's true value. And it also raises some questions about transparency.
Like, what are they trying to hide?
Exactly.
And to add to the intrigue, they just appointed a new CFO.
Oh, wow. So that's interesting. A new CFO could signal a change in direction for the company.
Or it could just be a case of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
True. Only time will tell.
So we've got a lot to think about with GCTK. A volatile stock, a recent reverse stock split some concerning market indicators, and a new CFO who's a complete wild card.
It's a real head-scratcher. But hey, that's what makes markets so exciting, right? It definitely keeps things interesting.
So let's play a little game of what if. What if this reverse stock split actually works? What if it helps GCTK turn things around?
It's not impossible. I mean, sometimes a reverse stock split can be a good thing. It can signal to investors that the company is taking steps to address their low stock price.
Right. It's like they're trying to show that they're serious about improving their financial situation.
Exactly. And sometimes it can even attract new investors who might have been hesitant to buy the stock when it was trading at such a low price.
Because a higher share price, even if it's just because of a split, it can make the company seem more stable.
Yeah, exactly. But it's important to remember that a reverse stock split is not a magic bullet. It doesn't automatically fix all of the company's problems.
Right. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Exactly. You still need to address the underlying issue.
And in GCTK's case, we need more information to really understand what that underlying issue is. We need to see their financials. We We need to understand their growth strategy. And we need to see what the new CFO brings to the table.
Absolutely. Those are all key pieces of the puzzle.
Speaking of the new CFO,
Yeah.
do you think they could be the key to GCTK's comeback?
Well, a new CFO can definitely shake things up. They can bring in fresh ideas and a new perspective.
Right, they might be able to find ways to cut costs, or
Right.
streamline operations, or even identify new revenue streams.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's too early to tell what impact they'll have.
So we've got this potential upside with a new CFO.
Yeah.
But what about the potential downside? What are the risks that GCTK is facing right now?
Well, one of the biggest risks is that this reverse stock split doesn't actually work. The stock price could continue to fall, and that could further erode investor confidence.
And if that happens, GCTK could be in even bigger trouble, right?
Yeah, it could be a downward spiral. Another risk is that the company's underlying financials are actually worse than we think if they're not generating enough revenue, or if their expenses are out of control. That's a major red flag.
And without those recent financial reports, it's hard to know what their financial situation really looks like.
Exactly. It's a lot of unknowns.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Which is why it's so important for investors to do their research. Don't just rely on speculation or rumors. Gather as much information as you can and make informed decisions.
So what are some key questions that investors should be asking themselves about GCTK right now?
I think the biggest question is, what is GCTK's long-term strategy? And do they have a plan to achieve it?
Right, how are they going to stand out in the medical device market?
Exactly, and how are they going to win back investor trust?
Those are all good questions. And unfortunately, we don't have all the answers yet.
But that's what makes investing so interesting, right? There's always an element of risk. And it's up to each individual investor to decide how much risk they're comfortable with.
Well said. We'll be back after a quick break to wrap up our discussion on GCTK. Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. We've been dissecting GlucoTrack all episode, ticker symbol GCTK, and, well, it's a company shrouded in uncertainty, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, a real nail-biter for those watching their portfolios. But I suppose that's part of the allure of the market, isn't it? It's rarely a straight shot to success. We have to weigh the good with the bad, even with incomplete information, and make the best call we can.
And with GCTK, the information we do have paints a picture that's, well, a bit risky. That price drop, the reverse stock split we discussed, the market indicators flashing warnings, not exactly confidence-inspiring.
True, those are hard to ignore. But remember, investing shouldn't be driven by fear. Panic selling or blind faith both can lead you down the wrong path.
So for our listeners tuning in, trying to make sense of all this, how do they approach GCTK or any stock with similar red flags and keep a level head?
Don't get swept away by the headlines or the rumors swirling around. Dig deeper. Research the company, their products, get your hands on those financials if you can, and understand who's at the helm making the decisions. Think of it like buying a used car. You wouldn't just take the seller's word for it, would you? You check the engine, the mileage, get a history report.
Couldn't agree more. Speaking of which, those missing financial reports for GCTK are a big piece of the puzzle we're lacking. Hard to get a true read on their health without those numbers.
Massive red flag, in my opinion. Until those are out in the open, tread carefully. It's not about being pessimistic, but rather having enough data to accurately assess the risk you're taking.
And for anyone new to investing, remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. No need to make hasty decisions based on short-term market jitters. Sometimes the wisest move is simply to observe, see how the situation evolves.
Patience is key in the market, that's for sure. Sometimes the best investment is in your own knowledge before you even think about putting money down.
So for our listeners who are finding this GCTK saga intriguing, what should they be paying close attention to in the coming weeks, months?
That next earnings report is going to be crucial. It'll give us a real glimpse into their performance, their ability to generate revenue. Are they on a path to sustainability, or are there deeper cracks appearing?
We'll also be watching the new CFO's moves like a hawk. Any significant changes, a new strategy emerging, or are they just rearranging the furniture while the ship is sinking?
Keep an eye out for company news, too. New products in the pipeline, strategic partnerships forming. Those can be indicators of whether they're heading in the right direction.
And of course, those market indicators we discussed, those SMAs, the RSI, the Fear and Greed Index, they'll continue to be valuable gauges of overall market sentiment toward GCTK.
Exactly. By monitoring those, investors can get a feel for whether GCTK is truly turning a corner or if those warning signs are getting louder.
So there you have it, folks. Our in-depth look at GlucoTrack, a company standing at a crossroads. Potential for growth, but also undeniable risks that can't be ignored.
As with any investment, it boils down to due diligence. Weigh those pros and cons, make a choice that aligns with your own risk tolerance and what you hope to achieve as an investor.